Welcome everybody to the GallowgateShots podcast and YouTube channel, and we are back with part 2 with the Ryan Taylor question and answer and interview and just general chat about anything that we want to go down. So Ryan, how are you doing tonight? You all good?
Yeah, I'm good, lad. Yeah, yourself?
I'm not bad. How's yourself, Matty?
Myself is fine. Thank you very much.
So as always, I just want to point out at the very start here is that this is part 2. Okay, so if you haven't seen part 1, I would recommend going back and watching that one, because halfway through this, you're probably thinking, why have they not mentioned this? Why have you not mentioned that? We've probably done it already. But I just want to start very recently, Ryan. You messaged last week after the result against Brighton, saying that it was basically a shambolic performance in such a crucial game in the season. So I think as a fan base, we realise how important that game was in obviously separating the teams from below us and getting that gap a bit bigger. But it's certainly not what we saw on the field. It was absolutely, like you said, it was a shocking display. So were you as angered as what we were after that as a professional footballer?
I think just watching it, knowing how much that game and what was on the line, I'm not saying Fulham were going to pick up 10 points or anything, but you could have been safe, because everyone's got tough run-ins, and Fulham's run it's got to end at some point where they go on another losing streak. So, you win that one, you go like five points clear. Then you only have to win one more, and then obviously it still will go down to the wire, but at least you've got a little bit of comfort. But watching that game, it was painful. I mean, I could tell straight away, 5 minutes in, the setup was like playing Man City away, and I'm thinking, this is Brighton away. Yeah. It was so negative. It was winding me up watching it, thinking, you've just got that last minute equaliser against Villa. You should be going there with a bit more confidence. I mean, come on. I mean, anyone watching that game would have thought Newcastle, as a neutral, you'd have watched it and gone, wow, Newcastle have gone. They've just, you'd have thought they were down. That's what, on that performance, you'd have gone, they're obviously, they're down already then. But watching it was just like, lads, this is Brighton, not Man City away. So, you know what, I think, one win all season at home they've had.
Yeah. Two in 15 months.
Yeah. Do you know what it reminds me of? Sheffield United away. They hadn't won all season, and it's Newcastle who go there and put it
charitable Newcastle, yeah.
And it's like, at the end of the day, it should have been a dogfight, that game. But how easy was it for Brighton to play football that game?
Yeah, I think you mentioned in the past, so I think it was on the back of when you mentioned when you got your chant, the Ryan Taylor over the wall chant, and you said you would even hear it when you were going into a 50-50 tackle and winning that challenge. You would hear it then. And do you feel as if that's what the team is needing right now? Because there just doesn't seem to be any fight or just dedication to getting that ball and pushing forward. There just doesn't seem to be that. Like you said, it seems like we've either already been relegated or safe as houses.
Yeah, that's how it feels, and it's neither. But yeah, it does sometimes just take one just to unsettle the opposition, just to go, right, lads, we need to set the tone here. These need to know we're here to mean business. I mean, there's one or two players in that team who I know can, lay one in, and Isaac is normally one of them. He likes to tackle. I know he's injured now, but I know he's not shy of a tackle. But I just don't know. I don't know. To me, I mean, I don't like saying it because I never like seeing managers lose the job and everything else, because one day I want to be there. But it just looks like they don't want to play for them. It looks like they've got no ideas, and it looks like they're just not bothered until a new manager comes in. And I hope that's not the case, because if no one comes in, then you've got a fear for the next 6 to 8 games.
Yeah. Well, Kieran Clark was quoted after the game as saying something along the lines of, "We just went up for it." And to hear someone, especially like Kieran, who is synonymous with trying hard, so if he's saying that, then God knows what the squad's feeling like, and where's that coming from?
Yeah, I mean, you find that amazing, don't you? A game that could have meant so much to the season, on how sort of bad it's been recently, that one win might have just picked up a lot more positives in the dressing room. But the way it finished was just like, I mean, I had to go out after 60 minutes because I couldn't watch it. I mean, I'm a former player and a fan now, and you've been diehards all your life. I was just annoyed watching it. After 60 minutes, I just had to leave, and it was just frustrating to watch. That's all I can put down.
You mentioned there, obviously, the signs that the players aren't necessarily playing for the manager, and they don't look like they want to save, not just the club from relegation, but obviously getting relegated at the best of times is hard. But getting relegated in this situation, where fans haven't been able to go into the ground for the last 12 months, and obviously there's massive financial impact for any football club, probably even more so you probably expect for a Premier League club who would lose out on a lot of money getting relegated anyway. Then obviously you've got the likes of the gate and things like that, which you're not bringing ticket sales in at the minute. I'm just thinking, is there any telltale signs for you which makes you think, obviously you've been in this sort of position before, playing at St. James Park on the field there, no matter which club you're at. Can you see anything now which is making you think they've definitely gone and the manager has definitely lost that dressing room?
I mean, just the signs against Brighton were there. I mean, a game of that size, for the lack of trying, and you've just called a quote there from Kieran Clark to say, we just weren't up for it. I mean, why? How can the manager not rally them up before the game and get them going? So, that in itself is a big worry. I mean, I've never been in a dressing room where I've walked onto the pitch and gone, I'm looking around here and these have gone. I mean, when I first went in and we had that them first few months with, if you like, the Michael Owens and Vidukas and that squad, that was probably the only time I looked around and thought, something's not right here.
Yeah.
But the season, and then that was the only time I ever spent in the Championship at my time there. And then even in that last season, when obviously we stayed up, beat West Ham, Jonas scored, you could look around that dressing room and okay, we did go on a bad run, but you could still look around that dressing room and go, I fancy him. He's got my back. He's got my back. He's got my. You could look. You could look them in the eye and be like, yeah, we've got each other's back here. We're just going through a tough time. Whereas you look around now and it doesn't look like there's a big, huge togetherness in there anymore. I don't know. I might be wrong, but whether it does need a change of manager, I'm not. Everyone is obviously calling that.
You mentioned on part one of this that obviously you went in a little bit of detail with Colaccini and the sort of captain which he was, and you said that he wouldn't let you have that sort of performance as a captain. He would literally drag you to one side and say that wasn't good enough. Is that what we need right now? Do you need these senior players? Well, I'm saying this, and personally, I'm seeing some of the senior players, and they're playing exactly the same as the rest of the players on the field. So it looks like it's from start to bottom, where there's just no dedication and no fight in there.
Yeah, I know what you mean. I am, I watch exactly the same as you. You just want to see something. You want to see someone like grabbing hold of someone. I know. Listen, I've been with like Paul Dummett. Say he's a quiet lad. He's not a shouter. He isn't going to go and grab. He's not going to go because he's been here the longest. He's not going to go and grab John Joe Shelby and drag him and be a big voice in the dressing room. He's quite a quiet lad. So then you look to who else is Jamal. He looks like a big guy. He looks tough, but again, he doesn't look like someone who's going to bark and like grab people and. It does seem a bit too nice. I mean, I don't know whether a lot of them characters are gone out the game now, but it just doesn't look like you can look around that dressing room and go, oh, scared of him. When I was there, like Kevin Nolan wouldn't be shy, Joey wouldn't be shy, Alan Smith wouldn't be shy. You'd be like, oh, I hope he doesn't get on my back today, and because they'll give you something if you're not performing or if you're not trying at least. Whereas you can look around now and who is there? I mean, who is the one to go? Point the finger. Being in dressing rooms where, okay, he obviously caused a little bit of upset, but at least he had something about him. It was Hatam. He obviously there's something wrong, but at least he cared. At least he cared. You know, or he had some passion about him. Maybe nowadays they show it in different ways, but you know, these next few games are big. I'll tell you that.
I think maybe it's I mean, I know it's down to players, and we won't have never been in these positions, but I mean, Lascelles, he came into the club quite young, got the captaincy quite young. There were stories about him having to-dos with Diame in the Premier League, and you know, he was fronting and going in front of the cameras when we were about to go down, and it feels like he's been beaten into submission. Like you've just said, like he doesn't seem like he's shouting, and perhaps, you know, he's only a young player, and he's already seeing hopefully not two relegations, and maybe that's playing on the minds. I'm not too sure.
Yeah, I mean, I can understand there is a fear factor in the dressing room when you are in a relegation fight, and you know, it's tight. Like there has got to come a point where, you know, you look in the mirror and go, you know, am I up for this? Have I got it in me? And that's what it takes. It sometimes takes, you know, yourself to go, right, look at yourself and go, okay, I'm up for this. But you know, there's a big confidence thing. If you're not feeling confident and you go hiding in games, and it's very easy for players to go hiding in games, and especially now there's no fans, because you know there's fans there, they're on your back, but with no fans there, you think, oh, got away with one here. I mean, I look at some of the players this season, and I am disappointed in some of the signings, the way they performed. You know, I expected better things from Jeff Hendrick. He's one I thought might come and a little bit of bite in the midfield. Hasn't really worked. Does seem to play backwards a lot. Things like that. So, you know, so like signings just haven't worked. But it's a big club, and sometimes I've said it in the past. Sometimes like it's sink or swim, and without the fans there, I just don't get how there's not a little bit more about them, because I tell you what, there's 52,000 there on your back. Yeah. It's a lot easier to play in front of probably 52 that's in there now.
Yeah, you're right. I think something which we've mentioned quite a lot on this channel and these sort of podcasts which we've been doing is how slow that midfield is. It's probably the slowest midfield probably across the three that are normally playing in that centre, probably ever in football history, to be honest with you. It's unbelievably slow, and there's no box to box in there. I know we've recently brought Joe Willock in there, but even since his debut, he seemed to drop as well. And it just seems, have we dragged him back down to this level now? And obviously, he's gone from the highs of Arsenal and obviously being around such talented players and obviously trying to push forward. Indeed, apparently, Arteta had to beg him to go to Newcastle. He basically forced him out and said, go and get some game time. And he didn't want to leave. But obviously, he's just been through into a relegation battle. So his opinion on the Premier League football right now must be at rock bottom.
Yeah, I mean, you know, he's obviously going to go back to Arsenal, isn't he, and work with Arteta and go back and play Arsenal's way of playing, because, you know, Arteta does have them playing some good stuff, but completely different tactics between two different completely opposite ends of the spectrum managers. One's been around for, you know, 10, 20, 15 years, say, and one's been around for 1-2 years in management. So you've got someone with fresh ideas as opposed to Steve, who's got, you know, is he up to the modern day standard of how the Premier League plays now? That's the big question. He obviously plays very defensive. And, you know, sometimes you've got to go, okay, well, we're playing them away. Let's be a little bit, you know, tentative, but then hit them on the break. But like you just said then, how do you hit them on the break with no pace? And I know the big three key players have been missing, and I am looking forward to them getting back in the team, because you've seen when say Maximum plays, he takes 2 to 3 players on his own, so then it does free up the space for other players, and it gives that team a lot more confidence, especially as well when Callum plays, because he can score. He knows where the net is. You give him a couple of chances, he'll score 1 or 2. So I get that, but then the backup, it's just not there. I was looking at stats the other day, and between Joe Linton, Andy, and Dwight Gale, I think there's 5 goals all season in every competition. It's like, how can Steve rely on these types of players? I mean, playing Brighton away in a big game, and you've got Almiron up front, and you're like, was just sitting there like watching it, thinking, how's Almiron on his own up front?
Well,
Like,
that's a player. That's a player who's been pushed back as well, mate. We weren't expecting him to be back for another couple of weeks. Obviously, he wasn't match fit, and you could clearly see that because he wasn't the player that he normally is. So it's obviously, if we had went and won that game, then of course you probably go to Steve Bruce. Well done for risking Almiron because he's came out that injury free and we've won the game. But for that display, it just seems like it's wasted.
It looks bad now because you had a player who was a bit tentative, and you've been done 3-0. It's like you're getting nothing out the game. You may as well have just had Big Andy up front. I called it there the game. I'd done an interview on Sky, and I said I want to see Big Andy up there. He came on for 5 minutes against Aston Villa and just caused carnage.
That's a great point. Speaking of Andy Carroll, there was one game. It was a couple of games, but I can't remember. Matt, you'll know exactly which game it was. But Steve Bruce brought him on for the last 20 seconds. 20 seconds of a football game.
West Brom will win.
West Brom, 20 seconds.
Another game you would say must win, which Steve Bruce doesn't believe in. But 20 seconds, get on, Andy. Just fouled someone, and that was it.
As a professional footballer, if you were brought on for a game for 20 seconds, and it wasn't, in fact, it might have been a time waste, but it was a game, another one which we should have been looking at winning. But he's made a substitution when 20 seconds ago. If you were Andy Carroll in that position, obviously you have played alongside him and worked with him. What's going through his mind at that point?
Probably the same as what you're thinking. Why? And I get you're going on and you're going to play for Newcastle, but there's 20 seconds. Give me 20 minutes. Give me something that I can at least affect the game in. Like you say, come on. And he caused, and what? It caused maybe a foul.
That was it. Yeah,
and that's his contribution. Whereas, what else? Obviously, apart from giving a foul away, what's he supposed to do? Is Steve happy with a point against West Brom? It's like, is that where we are now?
That's where I think that's where we are. That's what I believe. And just sorry, Ryan.
But like I've just said, then you go to Brighton, and for them for the first 20 minutes, they put we were penned in a bit, and all I kept seeing was like clearances up, and it's like coming back, and then clearance up, and there's no one got hold of the ball. You're like, Jesus, are Brighton this good or Newcastle this bad at the minute? But whereas you chuck Big Andy up front instead of Almiron, he might win you a few fouls, or he'll do something. He'll lumping balls up to Almiron. It's like, what's the point? And that was I've played against Andy, and I've played with Andy. He's horrible. You don't want to play against him. I mean, obviously, a fitter Andy is much better because he can affect the game a lot more. But he is effective, and in the back of the minds of defenders, any set plays for and against, he's in the box. He does his fair share of the dirty work as well as as obviously trying to score. But he might just create something. It might have been a set play that won Newcastle the game if it was a lot better. But we'll never know now. But I mean, like you say, he just obviously he doesn't have faith in him.
Well, it was strange, Chris. Sorry, mate. It was strange because he got asked about Dwight Gale and Andy Carroll, and we've just talked about comparing him to someone like Arteta with fresh ideas. They said, "Why aren't you playing a centre forward?" And he said, "Oh, if we put a centre forward on, we'd have to change the entire system." And for me, that's baffling. Do you know what I mean? Like to not be able to just revert back to basics and go, right, okay, we're going to put a striker up top or two strikers up top, but apparently we can't touch this system he has, and that baffles me, even as just a Joe average guy. Like, that baffles me as well. I mean, you play football. You name me another Premier League team who doesn't play a striker up front. Yeah, exactly.
And okay, I know Man City have been without Aguero, but even with the people who they put in his place, they're still effectively strikers. But they get away with it because they're obviously world-class players and they can adapt. But this, you're talking of Newcastle who are fighting in a dogfight now, and they can't put a striker on because the system that Steve wants to play it doesn't fit in. That I just find that amazing.
Yeah. I find it baffling.
So on the training ground, not necessarily just leading into one single game, but as a fan, I would expect there to be more than one formation, because obviously you've got in-game management and in-game tactics where it might not be working, and you manage to be right, we'll change it back to this, or we'll change it to this, and we'll see how that works. Apparently, we don't have that, because we had, I think it was 10 days break that we had not long ago, and said that we didn't have enough time to change the formation. It's 10 days, which surely as a player and as coaching staff, I'm not just blaming Steve Bruce here, I'm blaming every single one of those coaches, but surely there's more than one formation or more than one tactic leading into a game.
Yeah, but he probably had 8 days off. So no, yeah. I mean, again, I find that amazing how you can't work on. We when we used to do team shape on a Thursday and Friday before the day of a game, you would know the team. You would understand if you're playing or if you're not playing, and then you float in and out the team. The team gets changed a little bit. Maybe the formation might, but personnel gets changed. But then sometimes it will get changed. Right, we're going to just go 3 at the back now, or like, we're just going to go back to a 4-4-2, and then you change it around that way. You know, surely it works on something else apart from one formation in the whole week. And for obviously that, like you just said, then they couldn't fit a striker in because it doesn't fit the system, and clearly it doesn't.
Yeah. You mentioned the days off there, and it's been a huge concern for fans that the amount of days, I think it was out of 9 days, we're having 6 days off. Have you ever been in a position like that before, where you know that the remainder of the season's massive? Have you ever been in a position where it's basically just get yourselves home, lads, and we'll see you in X amount of days?
Not to that capacity, no. Sometimes in international week, you know, because obviously it has been, don't get me wrong, the season for every club in the Premier League's been intense, but you know, you look and think, we need time, we need more time to get this right here. And you might hate it because you know you haven't got a game for 2 weeks, but we need to nail this down. You know, we've got some big games coming up. We need to nail this down. Because, you know, there's not a lot of players on international duty. Am I right? It's not.
No,
a handful. I think there's about 6, I think I read not long ago. I think it was 6.
So what, you've still got a lot of players at the training ground that you can obviously try and drill something into. And don't get me wrong, I know, like I said, then it's been intense and everything else. And if you go off that Brighton game, if it's not confidence, then they look knackered. So maybe he's thought, well, this might, if it works, it's brilliant. But if this doesn't work, this has got to be it. But you know, I've been in this situation before when we've lost in the FA Cup, and then we've got a week off next week because we're not in the next round. You'll get a long weekend off, but where is there to go now? You know, sometimes he goes, go and get yourself away, go and have a little break, couple of days, come back, refresh, and we go again. But again, where'd you go now? You can't go anywhere. So why the players just going to sit at home? Well, I'd rather go in training and change the scenery, because I mean, obviously, you know, I'm at home a lot now, and I'd love nothing more than to go in and start training every day.
From a player's perspective, I think a lot of people will be quite interested in this. Can you just give us a breakdown of what would happen on a weekly basis? So let's say you've got a game on a Saturday. You obviously, let's say on the back of a win. So you've got the 3 points on the Saturday. Obviously, you would expect most likely to have the Sunday and the Monday off, maybe. Then what happens after that?
No. So what normally, if you've got a Saturday week, you'll obviously you played, you've won. Some managers get you in on a Sunday for a cool down. I haven't had a lot of them, but I do know there is a lot of managers out there who do like to do the next day recoveries. But then a lot of managers I know will give you Sunday off. So you got to have Sunday off. Then you come in Monday. Then you'll do your cool down, but it'll be a little light jog, little bit of ball work, maybe a little possession. Then you go in, get your ice baths, everything else. But then you're back at it Tuesday then. And normally Tuesday is training in the morning, you'll have dinner, and then you'll be in the gym in the afternoon, Wednesday off. So a lot of times, a lot of managers I knew will give Wednesday off. I think it was Joey when I was playing for him. He gave Thursdays off, which is a bit weird. But every other manager's Wednesday. Coming Thursday would normally be training, dinner, light gym session. Friday, little look around, see what you're going to do for the Saturday. Normally, little game at the end, team go and do set plays, and you work on your set plays. 20 minutes, job done. Get yourself home. Don't go shopping. Don't go food shopping. Get your missus to do everything. You get your feet up on it. That's what the manager would say. Get your feet up on the couch and get yourself rested, and then you go again. Like that would be your normal week.
It's just like that. I find I'm just baffled by obviously, and it's not just this week. It was publicised just a couple of weeks ago. The amount of times, the amount of days that players were having off, and that just absolutely blew my mind. And I know we mentioned this on the last one when we were talking about Sissoko on the Spurs documentary, where obviously Spurs setup is phenomenal compared to Newcastle United's setup. Obviously, we're seeing photos of you sat in a wheelie bin trying to cool down and stuff like that. But like, is there any point where the playing staff are taken into a room and saying, right, this is how this opponent sets up, this is what I want you to do and you to do, and so on?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, you have, like, in the back room, you have your analysts at Newcastle, and their door is always open. So I used to go and watch a lot of clips. If I knew I was playing, say, fullback, I'd go and these guys are so well clued in that they have clips on every player and what their strengths and weaknesses are. So you could just walk in that room and go, do me a favour, load me up this winger's clips. And but normally I used to watch them probably on around Thursdays and Fridays, just so they were fresh in your memory what he was likely to do in that game against you if you were in like a 1v1 situation, or obviously you knew what footed players were, stuff like that. But just to refresh memory. So yeah, but that was optional. But then what you would normally have, you would have team meetings through the week that basically give you all the information you need on that team and how that team play. And then it was up to you if you really wanted to go into in-depth. Some players do, some players don't, because some players want to not think about, say, I was playing against you. I don't want to think about you. I want you thinking about me. So that's how like some players think of it. They're like, well, I'm not worried about you. You just worry about me. But I was always one to just like look into it a bit more in depth and look and think, well, I just need to know a little bit more about you, and that was just the way I was. So some players are obviously completely different to that. But yeah, it was completely optional to walk in the room and get more information if you wanted it. So
we're talking about, your schedule there, like the day by day as a professional footballer in terms of training. You obviously worked under Steve Bruce. You were with him. You got your Hull, but you got Wigan as well. Like, we're hearing about all these days off and these sort of tropes of him not being with the times. How did you find your time with him? Was there things that shocked you in any way that you thought maybe we should be doing this a bit different?
No, because as a player, because he's not a bad guy, right? He is not a bad guy at all, and he obviously wants the best, but it's clearly not. It's not happening. Do you know what I mean? Like he wouldn't want to be in a position where he's just losing all the time, everything else, because so he will be putting the time and effort in, and then all the work in behind the scenes, but it's not working. But I've worked with Steve. And as a guy, he is genuine, and I reckon that's why the players they'll actually have a good relationship with him. But in the back of their minds, they'll just be thinking, "This is not working." And I've obviously been with him twice, and I get the days off. He likes to give his players days off. I've been there, but I've never had 6 days off. I've always had a long weekend off, and Steve used to like his days off because, but I'm talking of when we were at Wigan and we were doing well, and I'm going on Hull when we were doing well. So
it's a contrast. I appreciate it's a contrast in situations.
Yeah, so we're winning games, and when I was at Wigan was safe in the Premier League and doing well, and when he was at Hull, we were like in the playoffs and we were doing well. So I just don't I can't get my head around the fact that how many days off the players are getting in this situation. I mean, I understand it to go, like, we'll treat it as a normal week and we'll train obviously Monday, Tuesday, have your day off Wednesday. We'll keep it to a normal routine, but there's just no game Saturday. I mean, I watched the game the other day, and it was just through Instagram, and it was Liverpool were having a behind closed doors game between Liverpool's team of players against the youth team, and they were all mixed. I'm thinking, like, this is Liverpool, like, I don't know, and you know, they're obviously fighting that way, and Newcastle are fighting at the bottom, but like Klopp's having in-house games between them to keep them fit, and he's given 6 days off. I just don't get it.
You mentioned there as well, and not like cause an argument about denying that Steve Bruce is a nice guy. I think when he first came in at Newcastle, we could see he was a nice guy, but I mean, we just didn't want him. You know, we just saw his track record, you know, at this level is not great, and we just thought we were only going to go one way. And all the media and the pundits constantly defended him, and we've always felt it's because of that nice guy mantra. So can you see where that would be frustrating for us? Because we constantly keep getting told he's a nice guy. And it's like, yeah, but he's not with it at the moment.
You know, I keep telling you, he's a nice guy, but it's not a nice guy business.
Yeah,
it's a results-based business, and I do find it amazing how he is where he is, because the results just haven't been there. You look at other teams in the league, and a lot of chairmen aren't shy and going, "Nah, you're done. Who's next?" And then it's like, you know, look at Lampard. Do you know what I mean? It didn't take him long. New manager next. You know, nah, you're not cutting it. I want this. Gets a new guy in. Look what's happening. Changes the place. Everything lifts the place. Conceded about 2 goals in about 11 games. You know, it's like, you know, and I'm not saying, you know, go and get a Tuchel, but get someone with some different ideas, maybe just to freshen the place up. Because what is it now? 9 games left. And there's some really tough games in there.
Yeah, I think we'll play out of our next 7 games. I think we're playing 5 of the top 10. So there's something crazy like that. I might be wrong, but I'm sure it's something like that. One of the things I wanted to ask you is, obviously you were involved when the Newcastle players were having the argument in house in regards to the bonuses and things like that. We've heard rumours over the last week, I would say, that some senior players have approached the likes of Lee Charnley, who was there when you were there at the time, obviously with dissatisfaction with the way things are going and the manager and things like that. How does that come about? Do you have a close link with the likes of the managing director where you can just walk into his office and say, this isn't good enough? Or is it a point where you have to go behind the manager's back?
I don't think you go. I don't think you speaking to Lee Charnley, for instance, is going behind the manager's back, because, you know, as a player, you know, if you can see it's clearly not working, like, you're not going to go and knock on Steve's office and go, do us a favour, mate, pack your bags. you have to then go above and just ask questions like, what's going on? And it's not a case of going behind the manager's back. You want to know answers as to, like, you know, what is actually going on. What's the plan? And someone like Lee, I imagine his phone will be on. Actually, he doesn't mind his phone.
He's already got a few days off as well.
But I could imagine, you know, there won't be any hard feelings if a player goes and sees a managing director. I mean, you're never going to get hold of Mike unless Mike turns up at the training ground, but I can't imagine he'll be floating in and out the training grounds at the minute. So the next one is Lee. You probably give Lee a ring and just ask him for answers.
Were you ever there when Mike came floating in on his helicopter?
Yeah, he used to blow the balls away. he used to plonk his helicopter not far from where you were training, and there's balls everywhere. Cones and balls just blowing away. Not a care in the world. Gets out in his white shirt and jeans.
Oh, some shot and clobber, like his jeans, his boot cut jeans and that. Yeah,
who dresses worse? Is it Mike Ashley or Stephen Taylor?
Ooh, good question.
Yeah, well, you know what you're getting with Mike, you know. So you know, which I don't know what I haven't seen Tails for a long time, but when he used to dress, he used to like his Diamante gear. Wow.
Well, there's actually a photo of Stephen Taylor in a petrol station, if I remember right, and he's wearing a white T-shirt. I'm not sure if you've ever seen this, but he's wearing a white T-shirt, and it's stickmen, and one of the stick lady is sat on the stickman's face, and it says "I love sushi." I'm not sure if that's. I'm pretty sure it's not photoshopped either.
No, it's not a bad T-shirt, to be fair. No, he used to like his little flashy numbers tails, but he's a single lad. You know what I mean? He can do what he wants.
He's going to stay single with that dress.
I think he still is single.
Yeah, shocker.
So I think we'll come back and have a chat about your time at Newcastle, because obviously current situation, I think everyone's just sick of it, to be honest with you. I think apathy is hit everybody now, and we'll be in this position for so many, well, God knows how many times now. And I think I'm at an all-time low where it's probably because I'm not going to the ground and watching it live in person, but I'm sat on the sofa watching it. And when we concede a goal, yes, you feel deflated, but it feels completely different than what it has done previously. And even when you score a goal, we scored that equaliser. Cell scored that equaliser the other week. And once again, I didn't celebrate it how I would celebrate in the ground, because I'm just thinking, like,
I didn't celebrate. I didn't.
Yeah.
And that's I think that for me, that's a symptom that I've never had supporting Newcastle.
Yeah, it's just frustrating, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. Yeah, I mean, obviously, you watch any game now, and it's tough. Some games are tough to watch. I mean, you know, when that equaliser went in, I must admit, I had a little fist pump, because I knew how much it
Speaking
made.
of Stephen Taylor.
Yeah, but you know, I could understand. You know, you're in the stadium, you probably go mental there, because okay, you've only got a draw, but it was still the manner in the draw, because they were unlucky to concede that goal, because the game didn't really have much in it. I mean, I even come out and said one of the best chances was a Matt Target header back to his own keeper. It was that, you know, it wasn't that entertaining, the game. And Villa aren't a bad team, and like, you know, they've obviously got a bit more confidence in Newcastle. So you were just hoping that something would fall in Newcastle's favour and it'd be a 1-0. But
the Jacob Murphy chance,
when he had I mean, you know, obviously he come on and done really well, but then that goal, you're just thinking, oh, it's just not meant to be like that. Yeah. You know, how unlucky, really. The odds on that going in, deflection, underside of the bar, you're just thinking, and to be fair play to the players, that game, they could have just gone, like, but, you know, like I said, he chucks Big Andy on, causes carnage, balls getting put in left, right, centre, corners, free kicks. You're just thinking, well, this is what Big Andy goes on for, you know. And I think an hour of Andy doing that is better than Andy for 5 minutes, surely.
Yeah. Well, I did say that we're going to go, like, move away from this, but another question just popped in my head there, and it's a coaching setup. As a player, let's say you're midway through a game. Let's say you're 60 minutes into a game, and there's a stop in play. Let's say if a player gets injured, so you automatically go and have your water break and get fluids on board. How many coaches are normally around you at this point? Because right now we're seeing 3 coaches giving instructions to those players to the point where I'm thinking, are they telling them the same thing here, or they're all telling them completely different things?
You'd like to think they are all on the same page. Because, well, they should be, really, if they're only working on one formation. But you would like to think they're all on the same page. But realistically, you know, it should be manager, assistant manager, and that's it. Like that, they're the two who are normally like that all week. And I get the coaching staff will be in the room, but the manager and the assistant manager are normally really close, constantly with each other all the time. And it should really be them two who are stepping up, and obviously water break, give a few instructions, and off you go. But yeah, I can see what you mean. There's him. There's you know, there's thinking, who, like you said, then are they actually all on the same page, given the same instructions? You'll never know.
I think that's one of the most frustrating things for us. Like we're saying at the minute, though, it just obviously when Green Jones came in, and obviously we played well. The next two games it was decent football we're playing, but now it seems like it's dropped back again. And you're thinking, and you're seeing both Steve Bruce and Jones, and it doesn't look like they've got a great relationship on those sidelines. If I'm being honest with you, it does seem like they're arguing amongst each other there. It's probably because you're not named Steve, and every other one of them is called Steve. But it's. I don't know. It's just I can't get my head around why he's been brought in. Have you ever been in that position where the likes of managing directors and owners have thought you need another coach and brought another coach in?
Not at this stage of the season. No, I can't. I mean, obviously the only time really was when Al came in and brought Ian Dowie. But I mean, I found that a bit of a weird combination when them two come in because. Couldn't really see the history behind the two of them, and obviously clearly that didn't work. But for them to come in so late, and then obviously then everyone's like, well, great, he's come in, and yeah, they did start playing well, but like you said, then they've gone off the boil now. So what exactly is going on? You'd love to be a fly on the wall, I'll tell you that.
Yeah.
Shall we stop depressing ourselves and talking about the current situation and talking about let's talk about Ryan Taylor now? Because
yes, let's do it. Let's do it.
Ryan, before I forget, right? You obviously talked about Big Andy a lot there, and on our last time we sat down, we talked about the close knit group that you had going from the Championship up to the Premier League, and that group started falling apart a little bit when they started selling players, and one of the transfers was Andy Carroll, who was tearing up trees at the time, and then Jose Enrique goes, and what I'm hinting at is they both go to Liverpool. Now, can you remember that game? I think you were on the bench. I don't think you played, but do you remember that game when they came to St James's Park? We won 2-0, and Enrique ended up in goal.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm just wondering, after forming a relationship with players like that, when you come up against them, and then you see, I think Andy Carroll got booked for dive, and he got hooked by Dalglish. Then Enrique goes in goal. What are you thinking there?
Oh, I was just thinking, this is brilliant. Because no one would have dreamt that was going to happen. No. And even Jose, who would have thought we'd have seen him in a Pepe Reina shirt with gloves? And I remember it was Percy, I think, that got Reina sent off.
He definitely got him sent off as well.
100%. He even admits that now. Like when obviously we see anything on that, he says, yeah, obviously you got to play the game sometimes.
Oh, definitely.
But yeah, I think Andy had a big chance as well, and sort of cocked it up late, in the first half. But yeah, that obviously watching that, I want to win. I'm not bothered about the friendship because I'll be mates with him after the game. But during the game, you want to win. You want your team to win. But it just obviously so worked out that was one of the highlights. Was it's a picture of him. When you look back and see him putting the gloves on.
I've heard he's still. I think they did it on another podcast. He has still got the gloves as well.
I see. Yeah. You would, wouldn't you? You went and goal once in your career, and it so happened to be the club that you left.
Yeah,
brilliant.
I think that photo which you're mentioning, Ryan. I'm pretty sure he's already wearing the shirt, and Reina's got his vest on because he's handing over, and he's passing the gloves. And I think if you look over one of the players' shoulders, you can see Hatem Ben Arfa with the biggest grin on his face I've ever seen. Like just thinking, I'm going to have a field day here, which wasn't the case because we didn't go on. And obviously, personally, if I was in that position, I would just be shooting on target as soon as I saw it. Just shooting on target. I'm sure you would have been exactly the same.
I was good he didn't someone didn't just whack one straight at him sort of test him.
I mean, I can't remember how long he was in goal for, but I do recall that we didn't really test them, which like you say was disappointing.
I think we were 2-0 up at the time. I think it was like in the 80s. Perch got booked as well for the whole situation. I think it was in like the 82nd minute or something. But was there no cheeky text messages after the game, Ryan? Nothing like.
There might have been with Big Andy, yeah. But you obviously don't kick him whilst he's down because for him it's his first it was his first game back in St James's. He went for a big money move, and you look back and think it was a lot of money back then. It's like 37 million quid or something back then. It's a lot of money, 35 million or something like that for a striker who really only performed in the Championship, really. And okay, it started well, but he was quite unknown to bagging 15, 20 goals a season. So it was a big gamble and big move for Andy. But obviously the way it worked out when he on his first visit was bittersweet that he didn't win.
Well, I think with the Enrique thing as well, I think Enrique, like you mentioned on our previous podcast, which you did, I think he's actually came out and said, out of all the players, I'm not sure why Dalglish picked me to go and goal, because obviously the situation, you had St James's Park, I've just played for this club. I've not necessarily slated him, but he had some criticism in regards to saying Newcastle would never challenge for anything. And at that point, we're in the top 5. And obviously that echoed around St James's Park when he ended up in goal, which that noise in St James's Park that day was phenomenal, absolutely phenomenal, because we were getting that upper hand. But it's the same when Cabaye came back and missed the penalty for Crystal Palace, and everyone was saying that he obviously done that on purpose, which obviously wasn't the case. But it was just, that noise was electric, which leads us into when you were playing for Newcastle. What is the best atmosphere you witnessed in St James's Park? Is there one game that stands out? I think, wow.
So there was a couple, but I always just go back and when beat Man U 3-0, and when I think the own goal went in very late on, I just remember thinking like, wow, this is cool. It's like,
it's that moment you can just like take it in because it's game over then.
Game was done. They scored an own goal. You're 3-0 up. You beat Man United under the lights as well. Is far under the lights is far better than a 3 o'clock kickoff, and it's still daylight.
It was Alex Ferguson's Man United as well, the proper Man United.
Yeah. All the big hitters who they had at the time, but we just obviously done them on the day. Still obviously a very good team, but that atmosphere, I don't know what it must just be because the whole Manchester United are in town. We've done them 3-0. That was one game that always sticks in my mind. That I think that atmosphere was good atmosphere there.
What I'm going to do, I will start putting some comments on the screen as well that people have sent some questions in. So people that are listening to the audio, it's going to be a bit to and fro, to be honest with you. I think part 1, it was quite chronological in regards to your career and time at Newcastle. So I'll fire them up, and Eunice sent a question in there saying, let's have a look. What is your opinion on Sylvain Morveux? Injured quite a lot, but always seemed like a decent player when he played. I think he played quite a few games in Europe. But he was another winger who hasn't gone on to meet expectations, I would say. But what were your opinions on him?
He was a good player. He was a silky little player. Always very good, very tidy. But again, like he says in the question, he was injured a lot. Never like big injuries, but always picked up a couple of weeks here, a couple of weeks there. So he would never really get going. But he was actually a really, a good player. Quiet guy. Didn't really get involved. Always stuck with the French. But never interrupted anything. But as an actual player, he was actually a very, very good, talented player. Yeah.
I think we had a few of those at the time, and another winger would probably be Obertan as well, another player who spent a lot of time injured. But I think the season before he left, he started to have an impact on the team. I think he got injured that season as well. But he's probably another one that you could probably put in the same bracket.
Yeah, he is. Yeah, but he played the game a different way, and he never played to his strength. And I used to play obviously left back in training, and he would play right midfield. And I think Pardew used to put him up against me just to obviously challenge me, but just to show everyone how fast he was. Because he could leave anyone for dust.
Yeah,
but he didn't do it enough. All he had to do, he used to love a step over. When he first come, I always remember one of his first games, and instead of him just knocking it and whipping it, he was doing like 4 step overs dead fast, and then just pass it back, and you're like, I could do that. Like, not as fast as you, but his game should have been little dummy and knock it. He could have made so much more out of what he had because his pace was frightening.
This is what I love about talking to an ex-professional football player, because I remember watching a game, I think we were playing Spurs, and Gareth Bale was playing, and they somehow got matched up, and he gave Gareth Bale about a 5 or 6 yard head start and beat him at the ball. And I remember my dad just saying, why is he not knocking the ball past the player and just running? Every time he'd stop and, like you say, do step overs, my dad just boot off, pull his hat off his head and just kick off.
But again, you're playing with him, or even if you weren't playing, that them seasons I spent injured, I'm watching from above and I'm thinking, I know what you can do. Why don't you just do it? But it was just obviously all in his head, everything else. But if you could have got hold of him and said, you do one step over, I'm going to fine you a week's wages. But I'll tell you, we wouldn't do a step over. But if you threw a bonus at him and told him to shove it down the line and cross it, I guarantee you he'd shove it down the line and cross it.
Who was the worst for fines? Since you mentioned it, who was the worst for fines during your time at the club? So who picked the most up?
I tell you, used to get fined a lot. Hatton was always there, but never as bad. He was, this might not surprise you, but the biggest fine, not the biggest amount, but the biggest accumulation of fines would have been Nile Ranger.
No, 100%, yeah.
And it won't surprise you, but he was just late for everything. You'd have a team meeting and he'd be like, sleeping, could just be having like 5 minutes on it, like where he sits, and you're like, Niall, in the meeting, and you're like, oh, okay. Like, he was, that's just what it. He was so relaxed that he just.
And this is a player who hasn't necessarily cemented himself as a senior player or any former player in the club. No. He made only a handful of appearances, and he's just rocking up like that.
But again, that'll be why, because the attitude is just not. It's not cut out to make it at that level, because I always say I'd rather be 20 minutes early than 1 second late. But he was like, nah, I'd rather hit it on the button, and everyone's different.
But he recently, well, I'm saying recently, it was a couple of years back now. He done a podcast with True GEORDIE, a good friend of mine. Did a podcast with him, and I was texting Brian afterwards saying, "Oh, what was he like?" And he said, "Oh, he was like really well." And during that podcast, he says, "Oh, like I've learned my lessons. Like I'm quite punctual and things like that." And obviously, I was messaging Brian about it, and he said, "Chris, he was 3 hours late for the podcast recording. Like I was all sat waiting for him there."
No, he wasn't.
He was, yeah.
Oh. Yeah, because we used to have like a fines list on the in the dressing room, and you'd walk in, you'd look at it. I mean, I can't even recall if I was ever on there, but there was a lot of players who were never on there. Same corporates all the time, but there'd be a list, and you'd just see Ranger. It's just, this kid just don't learn.
What sort of things would you get fined for? Obviously, timekeeping and things like that, being late. But what other things could you receive fines for?
Kit left on the training grounds was a big one. People like to go out in bottoms, jump. People like to go out to take off because obviously the saying is, if you haven't got it on, you can't take it off. And so you'd rather wrap up, because sometimes the weather can change fast up there. But he'd just leave it on the training ground. So I'd be like, "Kit man, I'll just walk in," and then next minute, he's fine. And but then it's just a bit sloppy. It's not. He might go, "Oh, it sounds like 20 quid, 50 quid. So what?" But it's like, it's not. You're missing the point.
Yeah, discipline, isn't it?
Yeah, it's okay. You might think it's 20 quid, 50 quid, but your name's on that list. More than half of that list is just you. So is it not Twigan? But yeah, he was the main culprit, really.
Would it all go towards, like, I don't know, the Christmas do or something like that?
Yeah, team meals, stuff like that. But some managers might go, okay, you've paid for the staff night out stuff, and it all goes sort of back in. Or Christmas, we used to go to hospitals, chat, and the money in there would be for presents, stuff like that. It would all go to. It wouldn't all just go like, right, well, we'll just accumulate it up and we're going out on the booze. It would be, well, we'll buy this, we'll do this, we'll give that to the kids, and then whatever's left, we might have a meal out of it. But first things would always be like, who can we give this to, as in like kids and charities and stuff like that.
I've just when it's mentioning nights out there, I've just seen on my notes there, bit of a random question, but was there anyone in the squads and all the squads you've been in Newcastle who on a night out you just think, he's coming, like shit, like he's wild, something's going to happen?
Trying to think now, like who would be the loose cannon? Not really. Jonas would be lively, as you'd expect.
Yeah. He's not an idiot. He's just crazy. Yeah.
Yeah, lively. Yeah. I mean, there was one time we were in Tenerife when them pictures came out when Pardew was in the papers with glasses and the girls. I don't know if you can remember. It was on.
The three ladies taking a photo with them.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. Jonas and I think I told you last time, Jonas and Colo used to drink this black drink and it was disgusting, but it obviously will get you hammered. And he'd been on that in Tenerife, and I don't know why, but he punched Dan Gosling in the wrist, purposely punched him in his wrist. But like he obviously went for his watch and he smashed his Rolex.
Oh my god!
Yeah. He smashed the face on his Rolex and. He paid for it, but again, it's just why? Like, what goes in your head to go right? I'm gonna punch him in his watch. It's like, but he wasn't. There wasn't really anyone I think right. Oh, he's a nut job in, but didn't really go out with everyone. If I'm being honest, so I would never know.
I mean, he did say Jonas volleyed you basketball as well, didn't he?
He did, yeah.
He did, yeah. But basketball and Rolex.
I think you said on the last one as well, Jonas, like he's that sort of person who needs to let off a lot of steam. And it seems like it all builds up. Then you said you were walking past rooms and obviously in the training ground and stadiums where you just hear screams coming from the dressing room, and it's Jonas every single time.
Yeah. But again, that might have just been that instant. Bad, the timing, like, Dan's in the wrong place at the wrong time. He just happens to be walking past Jonas, just in a bar, and then bosh, his Rolex is smashed up.
I think there's a video as well went around on social media. It might be from Jonas's Instagram account, to be fair, where he's on a flight. I think it is. Must be coming back from somewhere in Europe, and he's blasting out Eminem and smashing the lockers above his head on this flight as well. He just seems mental.
Yeah, he was good fun, to be fair. I do miss him. Like, I wish he was obviously, local. I still follow him obviously on all the social media, and he's still playing and everything else. And I guarantee you, he wouldn't have changed.
Yeah, still going to Cobble's party when you're not invited.
Yeah.
Thanks. Bit of a dig, that one.
Yeah, cheers.
Next one is from Joe Patterson, who says, how did Pardew's influence in the dressing room change over his time as manager? Was there a point where he ever lost faith in the players? Because obviously his impact came in, that then got fifth place, then it seemed downward spiral from there. And I think a lot of fans probably will point blame at Pardew in that one, but the season after we finished in that position, there was very minimal players brought in. Basically, there wasn't anything spent. We brought Gail, Bigger, Ramona, Amafil, Torno, and Vernon and Nita. I think it was that were brought in during that time.
It wasn't until January you brought the French players in.
Yeah. But in regards to a manager, what was it like under Pardew? Because he always came across as somebody who was getting on with the players.
Yeah, he was good. I mean, I don't think he ever had a... He probably, listen, he's got to try and work with 30 different egos, you know. And
Some
I
very
imagine
big egos as well in that team.
I imagine it's tough walking into a dressing room as a manager, quite daunting a bit when you first walk in, but you build up relationships. You know who you're probably going to fall out with at some point, but then, and you know who's got your back. So you obviously got to manage the whole dressing room completely different. But from my personal point of view, I always thought he was a good all round guy. He wasn't amazing on, like, you know, when it comes to game day tactics, everything else, but he had a good team around him. When he had like Sir John Carver, who obviously really goes in depth with everything, as in on the tactics side, and really, you know, understands the club. So that was a good point, a good move, getting John in. But he had a good team around him, and it just seemed to work. But like most managers and clubs, there's so many highs, and when the lows are low, they just seem to be very low.
It seems like every manager has an expiry date, don't they? And obviously, when the time comes,
Yeah,
when they have to go, they have to go.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, there's no one out there now where you go, there's no Alex Ferguson's or Arsene Wenger's out there no more. Really, people do 3 years, 4 years max now, if you're lucky, and then you move on, and it all changes. But you know, there's not a hell of a lot of clubs out there who stick with a manager for 15, 20 years anymore.
What was the player's thoughts on when he got that? Was it 8-year contract he was given? Him and all the coaches, 8 years, which was absolutely mind blowing for any football team to give a manager an 8-year contract. That obviously got filtered down to the likes of yourselves.
Yeah, very, very, very weird. And I know I did come off the back of obviously the good season. So yeah, big gamble obviously on the club's behalf. But I always had in the back of my mind that it's not really 8 years. Like, it's 8 years if you stick it out. But I always thought, is there maybe, if you do lose your job, it's a 1 year's pay up if you have 6 years left. That's how I'd always looked at it. But if you do well for the next 8 years, it's your job. That's how I looked at it. I never thought, well, if he loses his job in 6 months, he's got 7.5 years pay there.
Yeah.
But that, any chairman would be silly to give a contract out like that.
It ended up being that case, though. I mean, I was about to ask about Andy Woodman. He seems like a character, and he was on a podcast recently.
I watched it. Yeah, I watched it.
And he says that when it was apparently him who got the contract first, and then the other coach and the manager gets it. And his lawyer looked at the contract and said, "Have you signed it yet?" And he said, "No." He said, "We'll get it signed now because it's the most ridiculous contract I've ever seen in my life." As if to say, like, if you get sacked, you get that money. Like, and he was the only one to not get the money when Carver and Steve left.
Yeah, I did actually watch that podcast. I think it was it Big John Parkin?
Yeah, and then Chris Brown, Kosh.
In like a bar, wasn't it? Yeah, I watched it. Yeah, so maybe that was the case. But when I was watching it, I mean, Woody was.
Is that what he's like? Is he a big character?
Yeah, larger than life, Woody. Yeah, Woody was. He was, if you like, the middleman sometimes between the manager and the players. Even though he's a goalie coach, he was like the middleman. And you know, if you were down a little bit, would he get you up and have a little bit with you, a little bit of banter with you, and try and cheer you up? And out of all the staff, it was Woody. Again, like the players, Jonas would be the one you hear first. Woody's the one you hear first out the staff. But he was good around the dressing room, around the training ground. And you could see why it just worked with him and Pards, because Pards quite quiet, Woody's not. And obviously he needed a big character in there to keep morale and everything. So yeah, Woody was a very, very good guy, Woody.
Staying on the themes of the coaches and managers, there's been a question from Callum Lewis, who said, speaking of dressing rooms, did you have any interest in half-time talks? So half-time team talks when you were at the club?
Half-time, probably would have had a few. Nothing really sticks out. One that sticks out is full-time. I think we'd lost to Man United. I weren't involved. It was when I was out. We lost to Man United. I think it could have been about 3 or 4-0 at home. And I've gone down to the dressing room, which I always did after every game, win, lose or draw. But I knew something was going to kick off because you could just see it. I think Hatam had just come on as sub, and he didn't track. I think it was Januzaj for United, and I knew, like, he'd just come on as sub and he's not even tracking his men. I knew it was going to kick off a bit because it's just the manner in way the game finished and everything else, and obviously it kicked off like big shoulder had to carry him out. He basically bailed Hatem Ben Arfa from killing all the coaching staff.
Really?
Yeah. Again, it's just, I think the manager has gone for the player. The player's obviously reacted, but you're dealing with a player and we're talking about egos of Hatem, and he obviously knew he was a very good player, and he's now getting criticised. He then goes after the coaching staff, and before obviously anything really kicked off, Shola basically just got out of his seat, bear hug, picked him up, carried him out. It's like, Jesus Christ. Like, if there's one guy in this wrestling room who you don't fancy a bear hug from, it's Big Shola. So, and he calmed him down, everything else. But I've been in a lot of dressing rooms throughout my career with different managers in Wigan days and stuff like that. Paul Jewell used to be a hothead at half time. Never really at Newcastle I ever seen anything major kick off at half time. Obviously a lot of shouting, a lot of finger pointing, but nothing to an extent of what happened.
How long was Joe Kinnear manager when you first arrived?
5 minutes, I think.
Because I'm thinking if anybody's going to kick off, obviously we saw his press conference where he's calling everybody God knows how many names under the sun there, but I would imagine if it's going to kick off, it's going to be Joe Kinnear that's going to be kicking off.
Well, yeah, my first game was obviously the West Brom game, which was the night, the day of or the night before when he obviously got rushed to hospital. So never had a game under him. So, there's not many people out there who can say that they've been signed and then never ever played for the manager.
Did you meet him again when he became whatever he was, like a sporting director or something?
He popped in the training ground, yeah, but I think it was maybe once. Yeah, a shame really, because I didn't even get to thank him for bringing me to the club.
Yeah,
it's a great point.
I mean,
sorry, mate, go ahead.
No, we're just on managers again. I don't want to go over managers again, but I mean, I just wanted to mention, you did play a few games under Alan Shearer, and you mentioned the Endowed partnership there, and it was a awful time because it resulted in us getting relegated. But what was it like working under Alan Shearer?
No, it was when obviously never really met Al before, so I played against him a few times, and I used to like playing against him because he was Alan Shearer. I was a 21-year-old boy at Newcastle at Wigan playing against Alan Shearer. I'm like, it's Alan Shearer there, and I always wanted to try and impress him, but then you go to Newcastle and he comes in the door and you're a little bit wary, but after obviously I know him now and I get on really well with him when I see him. But when he walks in the door, he brought that fear factor, which is good because it made me. Maybe it wasn't with a lot of people, but a bit nervous around him, stuff like that. But yeah, it just didn't work. He had his heart on his sleeve. He wanted the club to stay up. I think if we did stay up, he maybe had ambitions to stay with the club and maybe look down the managerial side, but it didn't work out. You've got to look at the personnel we had. Maybe that would have been one of the big reasons. But he didn't really have a lot of experience. With them than obviously Ian Dowie. He maybe looked at him and thought, well, he's been around the game a little bit. Maybe he can come in and help me. Again, it didn't work. But yeah, I like my time with him. He used to join in training now and again. Just
throw some elbows about.
No, I tell you what he did. He joined in little games towards the end of training, and he had one of the hardest shots I've ever seen. Even at when he'd be stood there watching training, and he'd come and join in, not even warm anything. Then bang, you're like, geez, shot on him. Rocket foot, yeah.
Did the relationship between him and Michael Owen stand out like a sore thumb? Because obviously we know now with recent quotes and things like that, Shearer said that he did believe that Michael Owen was injured. Then obviously on the flip side of that, Michael Owen was saying, I can feel something. Could you see that from the outside?
Not really, not me personally, no, because I was new to the club, and I didn't really, if you like, when I first went in there, I was quite young, nervous, big club, everything else, big players in the dressing room. I just went in and just done my job. Like I went in and just, I kept myself to myself. Didn't really build up a relationship with Michael to know what he was going through, or didn't really ask him any questions. So no, for me personally, I never really got to see it. I've obviously read a lot of quotes myself and seen stuff, but at the time you're quite oblivious to it because you just go in and you just you just keep yourself to yourself a little bit like I did when I first went in.
On the back of, I was speaking about Shearer, saying that obviously he did that persona about him where he's that hard man figure. Decker, who does Always Man Face, a podcast with ourselves, has put basically a comment in there saying how hard was Tiote. Obviously, he played alongside Tiote there. What was he like as a player? Because obviously we've seen him play where he took no prisoners, like absolutely clatter players left, right, and centre. Was he like that in training as well?
Yeah. I can't no two ways about it. He came into training, and I used to love playing centre mid in training in games and stuff, and just getting on the ball and just being involved. Better than standing out on the wing and might get it every couple of minutes. So he comes in, bang, you're like, who's this fella? Like he's hacking you, taking your shins off. You're like, he's come in with a little bit, a bit too hard there, but. I just think with me being me, I never back down. And I used to go, I'm going to go and get him. And I'd get him back. I'd give as good as I got all the time with him. But I knew, don't go too far with this fella because I don't know what he could do next, because, but when he come in, he was a dead soft, like, softly spoken, everything else. But as soon as he crossed the white line, yeah, you wouldn't cross him. He was a tough fella. Like
looking from the outside in, it like if you're on that team, you want him in your team, don't you? You want to be playing alongside him because you think that it's very rarely that he's going to let the team down. He's always going to give 110%.
Yeah, he'd be in my team all day long because of what he offers, just in the work he does. He was never one who was going to pop up in the box and score you a little last minute header, or he's never going to make a Lampard run as such. But what he'll do, he'll sit in front of that back four and he'll do a hell of a job. A bit like Fernandinho, at City in that type of role. But he was just a little bit harder in his tackle, let me tell you.
Would you rather receive a tackle from Czech Tiote or Sol Campbell?
Check, because I only ever received one off Sol, and he done my ankle ligaments in. But you know what? I'd rather receive one off Sol because I don't like Check had them bones where if you clash if me and you clash shins, we both walk off you clash shins there. He had them shins where he'd just be like, well, didn't hurt. You'd be like, oh, my shin. He'd be like, didn't hurt.
Next.
Yeah, like the old film Kickboxer when he's kicking down trees.
That's a good question. Yeah. Sorry, Chris. John Ditchy's just asked there. I don't know if you were both there for them, Ryan. Hatton Ben Arthur's goals against Bolton and Blackburn. Which one did you think was better?
Bolton,
really?
I love that Bolton goal because you've got players trying to chop them down, and then to have you think of how fast he ran at that time, and I think to just chip it in between two closing defenders.
That's the best bit about the goal for me. Yeah,
it's like to think to do that is so off the cuff. It's that from the poor left back he twisted up, who's still tied in knots to get in the Blackburn game. I felt sorry for at the time, and that finish, he just laces it straight into the roof of the net. But that Bolton one for me, the turn on the halfway line, then you've got someone trying to chop him.
He gets past him.
Yeah,
a lot of players then will just fall down, get a booking, what have you. But he obviously had it in mind. I'm not getting stopped here. and then to have the cheekiness to dink it between two players, and then just to roll it past the goalie. I mean, that for me it doesn't get talked about enough.
Yeah, I mean, I think it came second to Cissé's goal against Chelsea for goal of the season. I think that season, and I'll always remember being in the ground, and cause it was a pretty poor game. It was 0-0 at half time. We needed some spark, and that goes and happens. I think the game opened up, and Shola goes and scores a second. But speaking of moments that crystallise in my brain about great goals at St James's Park, Ben Arthur's is one of them. But yours against Everton is one that, no joke, just I can remember exactly what I felt when that went in. And you mentioned your family, Scousers, you were a red, your brother was a blue. What was that like, scoring against Everton in that fashion?
It was good, and to be the winner, I couldn't wait to get in to see me phone. I'm not even going to lie, as soon as that team talk finished, I was like, phone. And obviously, my uncles who are blues, I'm getting the stick. My mates are blues, I'm getting the stick. And, it's just like, couldn't have been any better. But yeah, again, it was just, one of them moments that it was, that'll go with me forever. That.
Yeah, it was a hell of a goal. I mean, you've talked about your history with Liverpool there, and I sit on this too long. This is a Newcastle United podcast after all. But I do get the odd comment on YouTube about my accent. You might not be able to tell, but I'm actually from Hartlepool, Ryan. And you have a little bit of a history with us, Hartlepool United, don't you?
I do, yeah. League day, not league debut, but debut in football with Hartlepool, yeah.
Yeah, and then I think you scored against them in the playoffs. Unfortunately, missed a penalty.
Scored a couple of free kicks against Hartlepool, but then and one free kick was in the game when it mattered, when we needed to basically beat Hartlepool by more than 2 to get through to the playoff final. We end up beating them 2-0, goes to a penalty shootout, and first up, ball straight down the middle, keeper saves it with his legs. So yeah, got good memories, bad memories with Hartlepool.
If it's any consolation, I know a few Nutter Hartlepool fans, and they revere that season so much because they were on the precipice of the championship. I won't get into it, but they've said to me a number of times, especially after you signed for Newcastle, that watching that season, home and away, Tranmere, home and away in the playoffs, they said they picked you out and said that lad is not going to be playing at League One level for too long. And did you feel even at that young age that you were going to push on to the levels above?
I just knew, obviously I knew at 18, 19, 20, playing in league football and doing well, getting people talking. I knew something was going to happen. And yeah, it just obviously, and then it all falls into place. But yeah, you sort of get a feeling that you could play higher. And you get a feeling that when you're obviously playing at that level, you think, I want to play higher. So yeah, it all just fell into place once you look back.
What I want to move on to now, and as always, I do apologise to everybody who is just listening to the audio here. But on part one, Ryan enjoyed this segment a lot. We'll put some photos on screen, and Ryan had to explain what was happening.
I haven't seen these, by the way.
You haven't seen these ones, no. So you haven't seen these photos. To be honest with you, mate, they're not as bad as the last ones. Okay. So we'll be all right. So we'll get the most awkward one out the way for you first of all. So on the last one, we mentioned the fancy dress theme when you went to Dublin. It was the time where Jonas kicked your basketball in the river. But this is another one. So this must be another fancy dress night out with the squad. And it's you and Danny Guthrie on this one. So do you want to talk through this one, mate? Because you're wearing red and white stripes.
Yeah, but they're not the red and white stripes you think they are. No, so again, I was probably the instigator in the whole what outfits people wear. And I got drawn out as well as Wally. So basically, I was just Wally. But I was made up with it. Again, it's the wrong colours. But I was made up with it because there was a hell of a lot worse costumes out there. And when you're going on like an all-day session, if you like, to the pub, and you know it's going to be a long day, you want to be at least wrapped up. and it wasn't a bad outfit. A long sleeve t-shirt, nice woolly hat, scarf, jeans. Happy days. But again, like you say, it was the wrong colour.
So that's the only photo I could find from that night. I can't find any of those. On the last one, I had a handful, to be honest with you, and that's the only one which I could find. So I'm not even sure what the rest of the players were wearing, mate. Can you remember off the top of your head who was wearing what? So obviously that's Danny Guthrie alongside you as Captain America.
No, do you know the only one that sticks to mind was Leon Best was Spider-Man, because he's the only one I can think of because. Oh no one.
I think that was the last one. I think that was the one in Dublin.
I think Niall went as a Power Ranger.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
It's a whole, but but Leon Best was Spider-Man, and I always remember because he threw the hood up into zip, and he would like be all around the club up the and he was a good Spider-Man, to be fair, but
he's a good striker.
I'd love to know. I'd love to see a photo. If anyone's got any, then obviously send them in. But I honestly can't remember.
Like I say, that's the only one I could find, mate. Next photo up. So the next one, well, as you can see, I'll put it back on. It's not the greatest of qualities.
No.
As you can see on the last one, you said you were pretty shocked that you actually had a beer in shot for a photo. Once again, Ryan, that's 2 fancy dress nights out when you've got a beer in shot.
Well, I've actually sunk that one, which I'm really impressed with. Because that would have been that because of where we are there. That would have been meeting the hotel. We'll have a few drinks before we head out, and we'll have a little bit of food, and then we'll head out. And I'm actually surprised I've sunk a beer when I've probably had a night out the night before. So
next photo. This one has done the rounds quite a bit, and it's not just you, but it's from a number of years back. But it is you and a member of One Direction. I know that they visited the ground at some point, but what was all that about? Can you remember why they visited the training ground?
No, so they turned up. They turned up when I was injured at the time, but I got wind that they were coming, and they were having a game with all their crew who were on the tour bus. They wanted to have a game 11v11 against like the staff of Newcastle, and they obviously it included Pardew, Peter Beardsley, Steve Stone. So for them, they were made up because they had a concert in Newcastle that night. So then, whilst I got talking to the ones that turned up, I think the only one that didn't turn up was Zane. I think wasn't into footy. The rest loved the footy. So then I actually became really good mates with Niall after that because he loves football. And because I was injured, and I think, and I was the referee in the game, hard because I couldn't really do anything or I hadn't been training with the team. Pardew was like, "Well, you can referee this game for us, then." And obviously, it was a bit of fun. Do you know what I mean? It was, and then I got chatting to Niall, but you looked at that picture there. He's so young. He was like asking for boots and stuff. Have you got some boots? And
really.
Yeah, he just obviously you could tell he was made up to be there. None of the others really were like him. He just loved football. I
think does he not play in the Soccer Aid events as well? I'm pretty sure he played him on the Soccer Aid events.
Yeah, he did. Yeah, but yeah, I actually became quite pally with Niall for a while. Even like when I played golf with him a few times down at where he lives. He said to me as well, like after because I must have gave him a couple of pairs of boots and stuff, and he said, "Oh, why didn't you come to concert later?" And I was like, "Oh, let me try and get a babysitter then." I didn't want to let him down. Didn't want to say no. Oh mate, it was like I went with my missus, and it was just screaming girls. It was it was mad. I'm telling you. Obviously you realise how big these kids are, and for this lad on stage who's got millions of followers, he was asking for boots off me earlier. Like it was just a bit weird, but he was just a normal lad who just loved football.
Yeah, where do you think the boots are now?
Probably about 10 hand-me-down somewhere. No, honestly, no idea.
Right, a couple more photos, a couple more serious ones, mate. I want to go to this one. Obviously, you're being involved in derbies. Obviously, you scored the winning goal in one of them. But the next photo I'm going to put up, it was quite a sensitive subject for Newcastle United fans, and you were playing in the game. I looked at the team sheet earlier, and the team sheet is absolutely phenomenal. Players playing in all sorts of positions. But I'll put the photo on screen, and it's the one where Defoe scored the volley just before half time against Tim Krul. And obviously Tim Krul's having a bit of a laugh and joke when the halftime whistle goes. Was there any sort of reaction from the players with that? Because I know Tim has came out after the game and obviously came out and said what he did say to Defoe in that moment, but there was uproar of fans at this point. Did you have any sort of conversations, or was anything said in relation to that? Because that's obviously that still frame. It's not great to pick up from the cameras when you're 1-0 down in a derby.
Yeah. Do you know what? I'm going to be truthful with you. It's the first time I've ever seen that picture.
Really?
Yeah, first time I've ever seen that picture. But so I'll ask the question: is this after the game, or is this at half time? Did you say?
Well, just conceded. We're conceding the 44th minute, I want to say, and the halftime whistle went. Yeah.
I mean, you know, don't get me wrong, right? He scored a left foot volley that was. It was a good goal.
It was fantastic goal, yeah.
Yeah, I'll give it a good goal. And Tim's thinking, well, I've got 45 minutes here. To get a result out of this. Bit of light-hearted banter maybe, and he's caught at the wrong moments. He's probably give it you're lucky, sort of like you're lucky,
Yeah.
Well, that's what he says in his post-match interview, right? Yeah. He actually comes out and says that.
So, because he knows he was a good finisher, and he still is obviously a good finisher, but he knows how many times a blooper ball over on his weaker foot, how many times he's going to stick it in the top corner, especially in such a game. It's a one-off, really. And Defoe obviously can produce goals like that because he plays quite off the cuff. Some of his goals that you've seen over years, but at the time, I think Tim's probably thinking it's only 1-0. He's probably given it the like you said, he's quoted. But yeah, it's just wrong time. Maybe it looks like he's smirking, but really he won't be having a laugh and a joke at him.
Yeah,
he'll be smirking at him to think like because Tim hated conceding in training, so Tim conceding in a derby would be even worse than conceding in training. So
yeah. So the post-match interview, he actually comes out and he says, because the commentator brings it up, and I watched the game today. The presenter comes out and says what happened in that moment, and he said, "Well, I can't repeat what I said to him, but basically it was explain how lucky he was to score a goal like that." And to be fair to Tim, he does go on and say, if anybody's got a problem with the way I reacted there, then I'm disappointed, because I've been at this club for 10 years and I know exactly what it feels like to lose a derby.
Yeah.
So credit to him.
Yeah. It is. It's a picture that he might look back and go, okay, it looks like I'm smiling, but inside, I'm just thinking, you lucky.
Yeah, we'll get it. We'll get it.
No, you can swear. Not PG shots, man.
So the next one and the last one, it's quite a iconic moment for Newcastle United fans, and I'll put it on screen straight away. And it's Jonas's return to the Premier League.
Okay.
You got subbed off on that moment. It was against Man United. I'd say.
Yeah, it was. Yeah. John Carver was raging with me that day because I came off. I don't know whether it was my Achilles or my calf, and I was never one to ever come off. But we're playing Man United. The game's 0-0. The players could do without a half. Like, I'm thinking, wow, my calf feels bad, or I can't remember what it was, but it was something muscle wise, and I'm thinking, there's no point in me staying on, and we could lose this game. I know we obviously went on to concede a terrible goal as it went, but yeah, he was raging with me because obviously we're doing well. It's 0-0 against Man United, and it's a to or fro game. And for one of the back four as such to go off, he wasn't happy with me.
So obviously, Jonas came on the field and you went off the field. Did you say anything to him in that moment? Because it wasn't just a massive point for Newcastle United fans. Because once again, the applause which went around St James's Park when we saw Jonas on the sideline ready to come on was absolutely electric. It was spine chilling, really, goosebumps covering your body. Then when did you say anything to him when he came on, or was it just basically shake the hand? Crack on, son.
I think because of the relationship we had, and everyone knew in the dressing room what he'd been through and everything else, we knew, and I knew going off. Obviously, I didn't know Jonas was going to be the sub coming on for me. So then, obviously, when I see Jonas stripped, ready, everything else, I knew it was just such a big moment. Even me walking off the pitch, I knew how big a moment it was for the whole stadium, for the fans, and for Jonas himself to get back on the pitch. So, for me, I just it was weird because with Jonas and Colo every day, they would obviously the way you'd fist pump a lot of players or you'd shake hands, but with Jonas every day, you would they love to kiss on the cheek, him and Colo, just the way they greet people.
Yeah.
But they didn't do it with everyone. Do you know what I mean? They're like a group that. So he comes off the pitch and just gave him a kiss. Just he knew he knew exactly what I thought of him, and he still does to the day. So if there's anyone to come on that day, what a moment, because like you say, it's a great photo. I mean, I didn't want to come off, but there's no point me staying on. If there was I had a problem in that game, muscle wise. I'm like, well, I obviously can't carry on. And I told John, I said, John, I'm struggling. John, being John, big supporter, everything else. I always remember he wasn't happy with me, but I said, John, there's no point in me carrying on. And then obviously Jonas comes on and to the rifle, the ovation he got when he came on.
Yeah, obviously you gave him a kiss when you left the field, and Colo gave him the captain's armband when he came on. You ran straight over, and I would just love to have understand how Jonas felt at that point, because he must have been bricking it. I'm not going to lie, he must have been bricking it coming on.
Yeah, he would have been nervous again, just getting back on, but the whole game head would have been on straight away. But then as soon as his best mate at the club comes over, gives him the armband, he would have grew. He would have just forgot what's just happened, and he'd have just grew. I'll guarantee you that. As an inside, he'll have just gone 7'5".
I think about 30 seconds later, he went and clattered a Man United player and got booked. I'm sure he got booked. He was so late in the challenge. I want to say it was Ashley Young, but I might be wrong. And I'm sure he was about 30 seconds too late in this challenge, because obviously it was such a long time ago when he had played football.
Yeah, but who wouldn't want to go and lamp Ashley Young?
That's all the photos we've got, luckily, for you. Right?
I'll take them.
They weren't too bad, were they? They weren't too bad. Matty, you've got anything else before we'll wrap this up on the final little segment?
Yeah, I've got a few notes, but I mean, one of just basic questions. I feel like I'm going to know the answer to this, but what was your favourite away ground to play at?
You think I'm going to say Anfield?
Yeah, I do.
But it wasn't. Never really liked playing on Anfield, and being honest.
Special the first time you played there, though. Must have been as a Liverpool supporter. It must have been.
Yeah, I mean, you look and think. Well, my uncle used to take me to the games in the Kop when it was standing, and he used to sit on a little wall and stuff. So you'd be like, "What?" I spent a lot of time in that Kop end as a kid. So you bring back memories, and then all of a sudden you're on the pitch. You're just like, wow, how things have changed from going in there to here. You're just like, but then you lose that. But I always used to love. I think just because it was the best stadium probably at the time was the Emirates. I used to just love going to the Emirates.
What was your least favourite though? And you can use your Tranmere days, you can use your Wigan days, whatever. Hull, going through football leagues. Was there any the stadium where you were like, where am I at right now?
The one that was great was Aki Stanley. when we played them in the cup.
You've got history there, though, haven't you? You've got
Well,
that
yeah. I obviously one game there, one goal, good memories, everything and everything else. We've won, but I just remember, like, I think half of us had to get changed, and then once you were dressed, move over, let the other half get changed. It was a bit, it wasn't like some of the other comforts we had.
Couple of more questions, two more before we go into Chris's final little section there. One of which I think Clark from the GallowgateShots YouTube channel asked this in the last one. You obviously worked under Joey at Fleetwood. Again, tight-knit bunch, championship, promotion. Joey leaves for QPR. What's it like to then go to Fleetwood as a player and he's a manager? What is that dynamic like?
Strange.
I can imagine.
Yeah, because I know Joey and I know the way Joey works, and you when he's in a bad mood, you just leave him alone. You just stay way away from him. You keep your distance. Everything else. But then, there became a time at Fleetwood where it just wasn't working. And I picked up a shoulder injury in a tackle. I ruptured my AC joint in my shoulder in a tackle, which sort of kept me out for a little bit of time. I mean, how you can rupture an AC joint in a tackle was someone just lands on me. I mean, what's the odds on that? How many tackles have we gone into? So that kept me out for a little bit, and then I was getting back fit again. I played against Wigan away, of all teams, little behind closed doors game. Another tackle, win the ball, wallop, kid knees me straight in the nose, breaks my nose. Yeah, blood everywhere, everything else. When I seen a specialist, he had a camera in my nose. He said, "Listen, the left side of your nostril, there's no air really getting up there. The oxygen's not really getting up." I said, "Okay, well, do us a favour, just wallop it straight back in." Yeah, sound. So I spoke to Joe, and he said, "No, wait till the end of the season." I said, "But I've got half a nose basically, and there's 12 games to go." So I don't know whether he took the ump at the fact that I just went and got my nose put back in, but I have to then wear this little mask. And a lot of people in the Fleetwood connection don't know this, but it all just looked like I then never played again, and then at the end of the season I was released, which was like. And I kept it all quiet. But what happened was, so I speak with Joe after my operation, and he's like, "I want you to play." He said, "But I'm not going to play you with that mask on." He said, "Because if I play you with that mask on, I know what'll happen. Because if I was playing against you, first thing I'd do, Eddie, I'd smash you in it." I was like, he said, "So if you wear that mask, you're going to wear that mask." And I had to wear it for like 3 months if I was going to play football, just to let it set. He said, "I'm not going to play you." I said, "Fine." I went and got my boots, and that was it. I was done. I just said, and then, but this was like 12 games to go. So then everyone thinks, well, in them 12 games, I was just never used. I left the club because the manager tells me I can't play. What's the point of me hanging around? Do you know what I mean? So ever since, really, I've never really had a connection with Joe. But I wish them good luck when he got the Bristol Rovers manager. He messaged back, "Thanks," but for the record, everyone thinks I was released by Fleetwood. I picked up 2 injuries, and then the second injury, which was my nose break. Manager tells me because I have to wear a mask, I'm not going to play. But why would I sit around then and basically for the next 3 months go, all right, well, I'll just pick up my wages and get it.
It's a strange one when it is quite common. It is quite common, and you see in the Premier League. I think Shearer sported one for quite a few times. I think Demba did he not wear one at some point when he went to Chelsea?
Demba got his nose broke against Newcastle.
It was Colaccini kicked him in the face.
Tails used to wear them, and he probably didn't even have a broken nose or a joint.
Just like the look of it.
Yeah. So, but for him, obviously, we had a chat in the office, and he said, and then obviously then Joe being Joe, the way he looks at the game, he said, if I was playing against you, the first thing I'd do, smash you in the face. I'm like, well, not everyone's the same. So, but then he says, well, I'm not going to play you. Can't play you if you're going to wear that mask. So that was it. So went to the boot room, said, got my boots, got on me, said bye to all the lads, and done. said, I'm off. And that was it. And then end of the season, come out, which I was quite fuming about, but I never went public about it and just like sort of went back at Fleetwood because, you know, I'm not here to argue with people, but they then put me on their release list. I'm like, no, I haven't been there for 2-3 months. Like, you know, now it looks like you've let me go. And that's worse for me. Yeah. Because it looks like I've been binned off by Fleetwood. It's like, that's not what happened. So yeah, that's how it finished. But going back, obviously, me, you know, playing with Joe, knowing Joe, then working under Joe, it was just a bit strange.
Yeah. Well, the last question before we finish this off, you said in the last podcast about, you know, derby days and everything like that, and how a lot of people, you know, Newcastle, it's a one club city, but we're still so unique in terms of the fan base is so passionate, and we will let players know what we think, and they're not scared. You said you're not scared to come up here in public. Do you have any stories about bigging out in public and certain people, or just the odd person off the street maybe pushing the boundaries a little bit in terms of thinking they can come over and just speak to you when you're just going about your daily life?
It's a tough one, really, because, you know, there was quite a lot, but I always used to get a lot of. It was good chat. You know what I mean? Just probably because if we lost, you wouldn't see me, mate. Like, I wouldn't be rolling around town if we'd lost. You know what I mean? But you know, there was the odd time where I'm out having a Sunday lunch, and normally what would happen over home games is like I'd have my mum or my dad staying up either day because when I was a kid they split up, so it was always a bit weird because a home game I'd have my dad would come up on the Friday, stay Friday night, go home after the game, but my mum would drive up Sunday, stay on Saturday, then stay Saturday night and go home Sunday. So I used to have to float the family around as well as like, so then on a Sunday go out for Sunday lunch with my mum and family and the kids, and obviously, you know, just fans being fans, they wouldn't shy away from coming over to your Sunday dinner table and, what do you think about this? And, you know, it's like, all right, mate, I'll come and have a chat with you in a minute. Like, you know, let me have dinner.
Fair play. Anyway, Chris.
Right, so just to end it, this is going to be very quick because people who are watching, we're not necessarily done. We do still have another podcast coming with Ryan that will be released at another date. So just keep your eyes peeled for that one. But I just want to end it on a quick fire round, Ryan. So I'm going to say one word at you for each one. There's around about 12 on my list. So I'm going to fire one single word at you, and you've got to tell me the first player that comes to mind when I say this player. Doesn't necessarily have to be a Newcastle United player, but whichever player comes into your head first. Okay, so no holds barred on this one. Okay, I've even got a list and everything, mate. Right, so first up, gifted.
Ben Arthur.
Angry.
Joey.
Cocky.
Nice cocky, Kabay.
Okay. Emotional.
Tails.
Okay. It was smelly.
Smelly.
Yeah.
Smelly.
Sol Campbell.
Yeah, no, it's too nice a word. I'll rest his soul, check.
Really?
Oh.
Yeah. Intelligent.
Intelligent in that dressing room. Just trying to think now. Intelligent, probably Mike Williamson.
Okay. Rumor has it that Rob Elliott, goalkeeper, is intelligent. I may have got that wrong, but
spends a lot of time with Rob. Wouldn't call him intelligent. Might change by now. Two things I'd call him, but not intelligent. But,
well, we'll come back to that one.
All good though.
Yeah, good.
Wasted, as in wasted talent.
Wasted. There was a couple. I mean, you can look at Niall, wasted. Sammy, wasted. Has obviously made a career, but wasted a bit. But again, I probably think, and he obviously went on and played well, but Hatton.
Yeah. Punctual. So somebody who's going to be there on the dot every single time.
Or people who will never be late. Colo. Yeah.
Colo? Okay. Bossy.
Kevin Owen.
Lazy.
Sammy.
Handsome.
Oh, handsome. Well, the women, when Johan came.
Had to be Kabay, didn't it?
Yeah, of course, yeah.
Had to be.
Have you seen his Instagram? You wouldn't think he used to play footy.
And finally, a brown nose. Was one player who was a bit of a brown nose with the manager?
Oh, well, that's easy, isn't it? Tails. He used to be a brown nose to 52,000 people.
You mentioned on the last one, I wanted to, I've listened back a couple of days ago, but you did mention on the last one that Taylor got told to stop being so enthusiastic before kickoff. How did that go? Was it Pardew who said simmer down a little bit?
No, do you know what I think? It was before when I got there, but then obviously I hear why he stopped doing it. I think it was Kevin Keegan. I think, was it? Or I'm trying to think who it was. Could have been Big Sam.
He picked it back up later on in his career at Newcastle.
I think he stopped doing it as well because at one point he was doing it when things were bad, and like a lot of the Gallagher end were just like, don't want it, mate. Like, I get that. Do you know what I mean? One or two, you know, and especially if things are going well, get the fans going. What have you? Obviously, because you know it's all about entertaining and everything else. But I loved it as a kid. I loved seeing it as Stephen Taylor do that when I was in my teens.
But can you imagine like a guy who's in his 40s seeing it? You're thinking like, "Jog on, mate, jog on." You know, say I took my lads, we went to watch Liverpool, and I see Trent running towards the cop, and he's like, and he was like, who won? Like, my lads would be like, yeah, like, you know,
yeah.
Well, you would have been around about the time where for some reason Stephen Taylor kept on standing in front of the goalkeeper when we were getting free kicks. What was all that about?
Yeah, it's funny that, wasn't it? I think I see one actually the other day on the Premier League.
Stoke against Stoke, I think it was.
Stoke, yeah, Johan scores. You know what? He was just a pain. It's just like for the opposition. He used to obviously get called a lot of stuff. Tails like he's so busy and this, that, the other. And he just wanted to win, to do whatever to win. And at one point, he just off his own back. Didn't say nothing to the manager. Just thought, well, like, you know, I'm going to stand in front of the keeper, and if the keeper puts his arm up, I'm going to put my arm up, and and then he's going to be like that with his wall, and then Tails will be like that, just doing his head in. And it obviously works. Like worked once or twice, but then you know the opposition are just looking at him thinking, mate, like, you know, are you serious? Like, you know, but I think even the referee comes over to him in that game and is like, you know, behave. Like,
yeah,
you know,
what are you doing?
This is on the telly.
I think with Stephen Taylor, I think a lot of the time, I think he just found himself a bit bored for a defence which was quite busy. I think he just found himself a little bit bored. So he thought, what can I do to entertain myself? Yeah.
Well, if I can't like do this to the fans, like what else can I do? Oh, I'll go and piss the goalie off.
Right, so I've got one final one, which just came in from Adam, who works behind the scenes on this one. I'm saying Adam as if I don't know him. He's actually my brother. He said, I'll put it on the screen there. He said, in real life football challenges with Ryan Taylor, once we're allowed to leave our homes. So when everything goes back to normal and when the world isn't on fire, can we arrange to come and meet you at some training facility and you can teach us how to score free kicks?
Yeah, why not? Let's have it. I want to see what you've got for me.
Not much, mate. Not much. I can stand in front of the goalkeeper if you want.
You got a bit, Matty, yeah?
No, I have a shite.
But you used to shout at me. Oh, okay. Okay. Yeah.
No, I didn't shout at you. You scored plenty. You scored plenty enough. That's fine. It's fine.
I shouted at you that time you blew a kiss at us at the stadium. I like me. I'll tell you that. When you thought I was a Sunderland fan. Jesus. But yeah, I just want to thank you once again, mate. Thanks for coming on. It's flew by, just like the last one. Almost 2 hours once again. I'm guessing you haven't been homeschooling this time, mate.
No. You don't see the smile on my face, mate. Although it is Easter holidays on next week and the week after, I'm thinking my kids have only just gone back. But they've had like the best part of a year off, and then they go back to school. Now they're off again. I'm thinking, Jesus, make up for lost time here. But yeah, homeschooling was tough, and fair play to any parents out there, mate, because it was tough.
Yeah, massively.
Yeah. Right, so thanks, mate. I do appreciate it once again.
Cheers, man.
Like I said earlier, we do have another feature which we're going to go and record right now as well. So, everyone, I just want to say thank you for joining in tonight. Thanks for the comments. There's been hundreds. A lot of them, like I said at the very start of this one, we did touch on them in part 1 of this one. So do go back and watch that one. But yeah, thanks very much, and we'll see you next time.
Cheers, guys.
Cheers, guys.